Hello my loves and welcome back to my sketchbook, where today's painting session is sponsored by NordVPN, and I am trying and maybe not quite getting there, but attempting nonetheless to draw as realistically as I can. So I'm drawing this leaf with a water droplet hanging off. This was actually a picture that I took yesterday. There was a sudden downpour of rain and I forgot that I had the bedroom window open, and then when I came in, some of our houseplants that were on the window ledge had had a nice shower, and before I cleaned it all up I took a couple of pictures because I thought it looked cool, to be honest, and maybe I was procrastinating mopping up all the rainwater. So I'm using Faber-Castell Polychromos pencils and a Stillman and Byrne sketchbook. I think this one is an Alpha series sketchbook, but I will have all the proper info listed below. And I actually started this as a gouache painting and I just couldn't get the textures I wanted, maybe not painting at this scale anyway. So yeah, I went in with coloured pencils for the second attempt, and I don't know, forgot that I've never really used coloured pencils for a detailed drawing before, and maybe it's the kind of thing that you should learn about or practice before jumping into something so complicated, but I just went with it. I do think I got off to a good start. I got lulled into a full sense of security because this part of the leaf was in focus, so I could just sort of shade in the different areas a little bit at a time, kind of like a paint by numbers situation. It's when I started having to really blend things and also blending into white, that's the part that I couldn't quite figure out, but you will see that when we get to it. Around this point in the drawing, I decided to pause for lunch, so we will take this break to have a word from today's sponsor. So I've talked about NordVPN once on the channel before. It's a service that I've personally been using and paying for a couple of years now, maybe even more than that, and I have it on my computers and on my phone, and I'm always keen to share the things that work for me with you guys. So it's a virtual private network which basically protects and encrypts all your data so that prying eyes and even your internet service provider can't get your info, can't see what you're up to online. I personally use it to access content on streaming sites like Netflix, like stuff that just isn't available to watch here in the UK. You'll know that I'm always looking for something new to watch, and NordVPN actually has over like 5,000 servers in 60 different countries, so that is a lot of extra shows and films that I can have access to. And on top of knowing that my information is safe while I'm browsing and shopping online, NordVPN is the fastest VPN out there and can be used on up to 6 different devices. I haven't looked back since I started using NordVPN, so if you're interested in checking it out for yourself, head to nordvpn.com/mini to get a 2-year plan plus 4 additional months with a huge discount, or use the coupon code MINI. I will have a link in the description, and thanks again to NordVPN for sponsoring the video. Now back to this leaf. So I have a lot to learn about coloured pencils, apparently. I do think that shading lightly and building up the colour bit by bit is how you're meant to do it. I had a few moments where I got impatient and I just pressed down really hard and ended up with like a waxy blob of colour that was then impossible to colour over or blend into. So yeah, it's a slow and steady process, and I don't know how well that suits me. I actually don't know how people do it. These drawings take so much work and so much focus. I can see how it could end up being quite peaceful once you have the hang of it, but for me, still just trying to figure out what I was doing and not really knowing how to do the things I wanted to do, I just don't think I'm a very patient person. In fact, I know I'm not a very patient person, and you'll see that actually later in this video when I give up on the pencils altogether. But for now, the challenge is blending into white. Someone out there, please explain this to me. I thought I would just ease off the pressure on the pencil and reveal the white of the paper underneath, but that left too much of the paper texture, so then I went back over it with white pencil, and that kind of worked, but not always. I know Kendall Hillegas has a lot of videos on coloured pencils and some really in-depth Skillshare classes on them too, so if I do decide to give this another go, I will definitely check those out. But at this point I was just winging it. This is where things in the reference photo weren't in focus, so blurring out the edges became another challenge. I will say, looking at this in the video now, I don't know, I wasn't struggling as much as maybe I felt like I was, and maybe that's another thing about coloured pencils, or maybe just trying something new in art in general. Sometimes you get so focused on getting every detail right and you don't realise that as a whole it's still working. I think maybe because I'm so used to gouache, I've made every kind of mistake with it a million times, and over time I've just figured out ways to correct those mistakes. So when things are going wrong, I always feel okay, like I can usually do something to save it, and I'm sure that's the case here too. It just would take some time to get acquainted with it all, and as I said, I'm just not very patient. And this is where you really get to see that. The background was just a blur of blacks and greens, even more out of focus, and I feel like I could have made it work. I gave it a good shot, but I think I'm used to the instant gratification of paint. This was taking so much layering and you put so much time into it only to realise that it's not quite right anyway. So I just decided after a while to get the paints out, and they were already out, to be honest, from my first attempt at this in gouache. And I didn't even try to make it look like the picture. I just wanted to stick a background on there and call it a day, if I'm being completely honest. I wanted to see what it would look like finished. I'm wondering if you guys ever get like that, like so eager to see a piece of art finished while you're still working on it. Anyway, I think that is all that I wanted to talk about today. The bulk of my work on the book finishes at the end of this month. I can't wait to rest first. The last few weeks of working on it have been really full on, but after a second to regroup, I can't wait to bring my focus back to this channel, maybe my shop too. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you soon in the next one.